Well, Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. 25 of you in here right now. Thank you guys so much. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. Also, hit that like button. Helps us out on these live videos as me and Jordan try to continuously grow the channel here and bring more of you guys in. We got a ton to get into tonight, man. A jam-packed show. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot has happened since we were on here last week talking about our Clemson Tigers. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Bring on my boy, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Really good. Just trying to process everything that's happened in the last week. I mean, it's been a really busy week for Clemson football. So I've had to, I'm not one that typically does notes, and I usually don't have this huge thing of notes, but I have one today because it just so much has happened between transfer portal declarations, commitments. Obviously, Clemson knows where they're going for bowl season. Coaching hires. It's been a really fast-paced week, and it just seems like there's something new happening every single day. So just trying to keep track of it all, but I'm really excited to get into it because it's a lot of exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like you said, a ton to talk about tonight. There is no shortage of stuff going on in the Clemson football world and community right now. We got everything from coaching hires to transfer portal to recruiting and everything in between, man. We got a ton to get to tonight. So let's go ahead and give a quick shout out to the comments section real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into tonight's show. before we turn it over to the people at the end of the show. So SC Country is in here. John Srain's in here. Drew G, not me. Joey Foster, thanks for showing up, man. Appreciate you. The real MVP 24 is in here. Big Load is in here. And I think that is everyone. Thank you guys for getting into the comment section already. Please hit that like button for us. We really appreciate it. Jordan, we got a ton to talk about tonight, but guess what? We got to start somewhere. And I think the best place for us to start tonight is our brand new coaching hires. Everybody knows that the offensive line coach and the defensive end coaches were both let go by Dabo Swinney at the very end of the college football season. They have now been replaced by two hires that, for the most part, I think most people agree are pretty home run hires. What was your reaction to the two big name hires, Matt Luke, on the offensive side of the ball? What was just your initial thoughts as you heard the news break and the rumors started to become reality for the Clemson Tigers?
It just a lot of excitement. I think I put a tweet out when Thomas Austin and Lemansky Hall were let go. I said, listen, these coaching hires were coming for a long time. If you thought Dabo Swinney wasn't going to make changes and make big changes, I don't know what you've been paying attention to the last, 10 months. So it was really just exciting to see all of that come to fruition. And we pretty much knew that once, that decision was made to let those two coaches go, that Dabo was going to be swinging for the fences for some really big time names. And that was really exciting because you saw what he was able to pull with Garrett Riley last offseason. So you knew, if Dabo was going to make a splash hire similar to that on the offensive line and defensive end positions, then, it was going to be exciting. And obviously, as we got into the weekend after the show, some of the rumors started swirling around, and two names that were pretty much consistently in that conversation were Matt Luke and Chris Rumpf. And then you started getting confirmation from David Hood over at TigerNet, Larry Williams and Paul Strillo at Rivals. And it was, you're like, wow, this is actually becoming a thing. And it was just really nice to see that Monday it all come together. The Board of Trustees met to approve the coaching contracts and make it official. And it was exciting because it was, like I said, it was something that I think we knew was coming, but we weren't really sure, okay, so Dabo's made the coaching changes, so where is he going to go now? And I really don't have much to complain about with the two names that he was able to bring in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, I think there's been a lot of questioning of, Coach Swinney over, the past several years of his direction of the program and, some of the coaching hires that he has made in the past, from promoting from within to, people that he is known for a long time or people who have played for him. And some of those were valid concerns and valid, situations to bring up and kind of talk about as a fan base and wonder kind of what the direction was. But make no mistake about it, these past two off seasons, I think Dabo Swinney has made it very, very clear that he is not in the business of seeing Clemson to decline into mediocrity. He is going to make the necessary changes that he has to, and these are not easy decisions that he is making. But really, two off seasons in a row now, he has really gone out and pretty much got who he wanted to replace for the guys that he is, getting rid of on his staff. And kudos to him, man. He gets a guy in Matt Luke. This dude has coached offensive line for a very long time. He's a former head coach. He's got a long history of putting offensive linemen in the league, and I think that's something that'll definitely bode well for this Clemson Tigers offensive line, because that's something that negative recruiting. If you want to talk about negative recruiting, that's something that everybody's always been able to use against Clemson, even at their highest points, 6 straight playoff appearances, 2 national championships, and all that. It was not putting NFL linemen, offensive linemen particularly, into the league, right? So I think that has quieted some of those things along the recruiting trail. And we know the NFL ties on the defensive end of the ball. So, I mean, I think they were 2 great home run hire. Rumph is going to be a great coach, man. He's got NFL ties through and through. Look for the recruiting to get back to where it used to be. You look at Clemson's, defensive ends, the edge rushers. I mean, it used to be a destination to come and play along the Clemson defensive line. And, in the past few years, it just hasn't seemed that way. It seems that there's been a dip in both production and maybe quality of recruit that we are landing over there. So maybe Rumph can come in and right that ship and make Clemson a destination spot for these edge rushers again.
Absolutely. And, on the Rumph front, it's obviously you mentioned the tie, obviously he's coached in the NFL for multiple years and, but he's also a former Clemson coach. He was on the staff from 2006 to 2010. And obviously he brought in a lot of talented players in those years. If, Clemson fans remember some of the names that Clemson had in those years and in the years following, a lot of those were Chris Rumph recruits. So, he has the experience, and I think the stuff that's been said about him has been really exciting, just about how much he loves Clemson, how, he wanted to retire on Lake Kiowee, and stuff like that. He just loves the area, and he sees himself like living here and calling it home. He's a guy that's bounced around a lot in the league and someone that Dabo has tried to bring back at multiple points. But this was the right time, and that's exciting. And so if you're wondering, is he going to really stick around that long? Well, early indicators based off of what we've the information that's come out and what he said about Clemson is that he's he definitely plans to be here for a while, and so that's exciting. Knowing his recruiting acumen and his ties to the state and to Clemson. I mean, between him and Nick Eason, it's going to be you can't. I mean, I don't think you can really come up with a more perfect duo to be recruiting for. So that's really exciting. I mean, the relationship building, the charisma, the development, the track record of putting NFL guys in league between those two is pretty solid. So that should make you excited if you're a Clemson fan. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. And you said it perfectly. You think about the duo of Nick Eason and Rumph, man, dude. I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that. A lot of reason to be optimistic. A lot of reason to be happy about the direction of the Clemson program right now, and particularly the defensive line. Luke, I think some of the same things about him. He's a guy that kind of walked away from, a national championship with Georgia. They won that national championship, and he kind of walked away and was like, I need more time with family. I need to. So he seems to fit that same Clemson culture that, Dabo tries to cultivate in there, and seems like maybe he'll be a good fit. Dabo Swinney runs his program quite a bit differently than a lot of the other head coaches out there in big time college football. So seems like Luke's going to be a really good fit around Clemson as well.
100%. And just the type of recruit he was pulling in back, in Ole Miss and Georgia, some of those offensive linemen that you saw Georgia dominate the last 2 seasons in national championship runs. A lot of those guys were Matt Luke recruits.
Yeah.
So that should get you excited. And again, the track record, everything, from coaches to players, they've had nothing but rave reviews. He's a really, really great, just a great person, first of all, but also a great coach and recruiter. And I think he's in a better situation now, I think, than he was at Georgia as far as just kind of how he wants to do things. I think one thing that's kind of been hinted at since the hire was made was, his time at Georgia. He was very successful, but the stresses and of that particular environment were a little bit too much at that time, and so he wanted to step away. And Dabo, like you said, Dabo runs his program a little bit different than, say, a Kirby Smart does. And I think this coaching environment will allow him to flourish a little bit more and not feel the I don't know, the pressure and grind that maybe he was under, when he was working for Kirby. And that's no shot at Kirby Smart. That's just that's how Kirby Smart. He's a high pressure guy. It's a different mindset. Obviously, he coached under Nick Saban, and those two guys are notoriously difficult to work for. And it's pretty demanding when you work for them. And but I think he's going to be able to come in and really flourish and not really feel the immense weight of everything that maybe he was feeling at his previous stop. So excited to have Matt Luke on board.
Absolutely, man. I think he'll fit in great. Welcome, Matt Luke, Chris Rump, to the Clemson family. We couldn't be happier to have you guys. And I hope you guys have long, successful careers for our Clemson Tigers, bring in lots of recruits, and help us get back to another national championship. So now that we've talked about the new coaching hires, that kind of transitions right into the transfer portal. These coaches are going to be recruiting the transfer portal. They're already out on the recruiting trail, recruiting their particular position groups. So tons of stuff to still get to tonight. Let's talk about the Clemson transfer portal so far. We've had quite a few players enter the transfer portal. Let me pull my list right here so I don't miss anybody. It's too much to remember right off the top of my head. So we got offensive lineman Mitchell Mays, DB Toriano Pride, who's already committed to Missouri, by the way. DB Andrew Makuba, QB Hunter Helms, wide receiver Bo Collins, running back Dominique Thomas, tight end Sage Enos, who tore his ACL late in the season this year, and then David Ojebwe, defensive end. So that's kind of the list of guys that are in the transfer portal currently for the Clemson Tigers, leaving our program, looking for opportunities elsewhere. So, Jordan, with that list, any surprises on there for you? Anybody that you were like, whoa, I wonder, I didn't see that one coming, anything like that for you?
Yeah, I think there's really only two. I think the first is pretty obvious. I think a lot of people were kind of I was kind of taken aback a little bit in a different way than maybe you're thinking. But I think like Andrew Makuba, I wasn't shocked that he left. I had pretty much made it up in my mind that if he had intended for this to be his last year. I just didn't expect him to transfer. I thought that he was going to go ahead and move on and enter the NFL draft.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. But Andrew Makuba is a guy that he's kind of been through a lot since he's been here, not just on the field. With he's a guy that has dealt with injuries last year and some struggles there. Learning a new position, changing positions. But he had some stuff off the field as well, just in his personal life. So I know it was something that was difficult, these past couple of years that he had been talked out of transferring, a couple of times before this. So I wasn't surprised that he was leaving. I just thought he, since he decided to stick it out after last offseason, I figured he was going to, play this year. And especially since he had a really, really nice year, a nice bounce back year, I thought he was going to go ahead and take his talents to the league. But ultimately he didn't. Chose to enter the transfer portal. He's been a very good player for Clemson for 3 years. It's one of those things where it's like I'm not, upset about it's sometimes it's a natural reaction for fans to be kind of like apprehensive about a guy of his caliber entering the transfer portal. But I completely understand, and this is one that I can I understand that he needed a change of scenery, and so I wish him the best of luck. And he was a really good player for 3 years. So a lot of guys in his situation would have transferred earlier. So I am appreciative of what he gave for 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, Andrew Makuba is a guy that has, kind of an up and down career and history, as a Clemson Tiger player. We all know Makuba's breakout season, freshman season, All American, just absolutely bursted onto the scene. And then kind of sophomore season, regressed quite a bit, although it be, he was put in a lot of different situations his sophomore year and asked to do a little bit different things. He had a big regression this year. I think was a little up and down for him. He played really well at times and struggled a little bit more at other times. But at the end of the day, I'm with you. I was shocked that he's transferring to another college team. I wasn't shocked that he's leaving and not playing for the Clemson Tigers anymore. I much like you, figured that Makuba was bound for the NFL. I thought that, I'm pretty sure he did a couple interviews in the offseason leading up to the 2023 year, saying that, this was kind of his last year. He kind of put on weight to get ready for the NFL and kind of prove his way onto the field. And again, I guess he could still make that decision. I don't know what his draft grade's going to be, so maybe he's just entering himself into the transfer portal because he knows he doesn't want to play at Clemson next year. So just in case his draft grade is not as good as it was, he'll go ahead and go to another college team. I really don't know what his plans are, but I just figured he'd be NFL bound. I didn't figure he'd go to another college team. But I wish him well. He put his body out there for Clemson. He made a lot of plays. He was a key contributor on defense for 3 years for us, and I wish him well. And on to the next guy, next man up. We got a lot of good young players that are looking to step up behind him, and we saw flashes of those guys this year. So Clemson will be okay, and I think Andrew Makuba will be okay as well.
Yep. I've seen some smoke that he Texas is the likely landing spot. So we'll see how that goes. So I think that'd be a good fit for him. I mean, he gets to go back home, and that'll be interesting. And then the only other surprise for me was David Ojeboy, the edge rusher. A guy that I was really high on coming into the year, not as far as being a contributor. He's a guy that's really, really raw, but he's very physically impressive. And, you watched his high school tape and you were just like, man, if you get him into a college, conditioning and strength program and all that, he's going to be really, really special because he already looks the part. Like Dabo raved about how he looked. He looks like an NFL defensive end already. So considering Clemson's numbers at edge and who they're projected to be losing and kind of where that position is right now, I was kind of shocked that he decided to enter. But it did seem like it was he had a really good relationship with Lemansky Hall, and just felt like he wanted to go somewhere else when he got let go. So, best of luck to him. He's a guy I think he's going to be a really good player. I'm disappointed to see him go, but I do think that does mean that Clemson could possibly be looking at some options in the transfer portal. We'll see at defensive end because now your numbers are really shaky and you really only have one guy that you feel confident will be a contributor going into next year. So that's not great. We'll see how that one goes. But that was the only other surprise. I mean, the rest of the guys, Toriano Pride, we knew you kind of saw the writing on the wall at the end of the year when a lot of the younger DBs were playing and he wasn't.
Yep.
And then Dominique Thomas, I hated to see him go because I love his story. He's been a really, really fun story to watch, and but understand why. He's a guy that could definitely play at a lot of different places and be the guy. He really flashed some stuff in his limited carries this year. So best of luck to him. And he put his time in at Clemson and got his degree. So I'm all for him. Looking to find a place where he can be the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And to kind of reiterate what you were going on about with David Ojebwe, man, like I was surprised to see him enter the transfer portal. We have a serious lack of depth. Certainly a lack of experience at the defensive end position. I mean, you're losing Xavier Thomas, you're losing Justin Maskell. Really, the only reliable guy you got left at defensive end is a guy that was a freshman this year, and TJ Parker. That's really the only guy that you look at and you know what you're going to get with. I mean, you think about a guy like Zaire Patterson, Cade Denhall. I mean, guys that were highly touted coming into Clemson, but just haven't developed. So it was a little surprising to me to know those names that are on the defensive end, and kind of our depth issue, and really the playing time that's on the line. But again, maybe he just he didn't want to play for anybody else. Or he just figured that he wasn't going to crack the rotation at Clemson. I don't know his decision making and what went into that, but I'm sure he had a great conversation with the coaches, and I'm sure that he feels like he's making the best decision for his career. So for that, you got to wish the guy well, and hope that he made the right decision for himself. And I truly do think that Clemson's going to have to probably go into the transfer portal and grab one or two guys along the defensive end. Really a guy that can challenge for starting reps. I think, because outside of TJ Parker, like I said, there's just not a whole lot there. We got a couple true freshmen coming in, but what do those guys look like day one? No one really knows until they get on campus, get in camp, start getting in practices in the weight room, see how they handle installation and stuff like that. So you really don't know there. There's a lot of question marks at the defensive end for Clemson Tigers heading into this offseason. So, it is what it is. But you just got to move forward. Dominic Thomas, like you said, I think he could start at a lot of universities. Man, you mentioned he has a great story, but guess what? He's parked right behind two great running backs, and he's just not going to crack that rotation very much outside of blowouts, or when Shipley went down for a couple games, or whatever in the season. Outside of that, you got Will Shipley and Phil Moff up there, and you got to honestly, you look at the people still left on the roster. You got a deep running back room. There's a lot of people there, and it's not easy to get reps in that running back room. So not surprised. I really do wish him well. I hope he goes and finds starting reps somewhere. Same with Bo Collins and Hunter Helms and all those guys. So a lot of transfers, but nothing that makes me think that it's going to damage Clemson for the 2024 campaign at all. It's all guys that don't really surprise me outside of Ojebwe, like we already mentioned. But that's kind of how it goes, man. The transfer portal's on fire. I don't even know how many guys are in the transfer portal right now, but I'm sure it's upwards over 1,000 at this point.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's chaos right now. But that's the reality of where we are. That's kind of what the state of college football is right now. So, I can only I can monitor what Clemson guys are doing, and guys here or there that I think Clemson should target. But I try to silence some of the notifications because it feels like every 5 seconds somebody is entering the portal. So
Chris Jones says 1,400 plus as of 4 p.m. today.
Geez, man.
That's insane, dude. I mean, Todd Gwynn gets in and says close to 1,500. I mean, just like I just think about this every year, right? Right around this time of year, and I think we kind of talked about it on the show last year in the offseason at a similar time. You think about the amount of guys that enter the transfer portal. There's not that many slots in college football, and it's super sad that some of these guys get poor advice from whoever they get, or promises from whoever they get, and then somebody better comes along and they get kicked to the side, and it's crazy, man. I know there has to be something to be done about this. I don't know what the solution or the answer is, but it not only affects those players that enter the portal and end up with no home, but it also affects high school recruiting. It's just it's a crazy environment. It's a crazy situation that college football's in right now. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but at the end of the day, it's not going anywhere. It's not going away. Hopefully, they can clean it up somehow and make it somewhat more manageable than it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Clemson in this era, they're going to have to be able to leverage it and make
Yep.
sure that they're using it when needed. Obviously you can't. Dabo is not going to overhaul his overall philosophy of how he wants the program to be and look like. But it's at the end of the day, this is the reality of where we are. You're going to lose guys. You're going to have to supplement. You're not going to be able to address all your needs in high school recruiting like you used to be able to.
Absolutely.
So, and I think Dabo understands that, and based off of his actions and the things we're hearing about, transfer portal offers and guys that they've been looking at, it seems to be that message has gotten through, and so I think that's a good transition into talking about the guys that Clemson is looking at in the portal.
Absolutely.
We have a couple of names that have been swirling about so far. I think there will be more to come, more that have not come to light yet. But I think these two are pretty key additions if you're able to land them. So I kind of want to talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And look, the offensive line has been one of those kind of sticking points for the Clemson Tigers, right? Obviously, Dabo Sweeney thought so much of it to decide that we needed to go in a different direction as far as leadership, and we've already covered that quite extensively. So we're targeting two guys in the transfer portal, Kylan Rutledge and Alan Herron. Alan Herron from Shorter University, Kylan Rutledge from Middle Tennessee State. Both bigger dudes. Rutledge 6'4", 315. Heron 6'6", 310 pounds, roughly. I know we have Rutledge coming in this weekend for a visit to Clemson. He's going to meet Matt Luke. You're going to see if he's a fit. I think we were talking before the show started. He's not formally offered from Clemson, but they're a guy that he's a guy that we're interested in. They're going to bring him on campus. They're going to let him meet the coaching staff. He's going to watch a bowl practice. He's going to get a feel for what the Clemson program is and what the coaching staff is about. And I guess mutually, Rutledge and the Clemson coaches will figure out if it's a fit or not. And I'm sure we'll hear whether there's an offer there. And then obviously we've already formally offered Heron. He was our first portal offer of the 2023 portal season, if you will. So what do you think of those two guys? And you think we'll land one of them, both of them, or none of them?
Yeah, I'll start with Rutledge because we kind of talked about Heron last week. That was a guy that we knew about his offer before when we did last week's show. So I'll focus more on Rutledge. He's a guy that I think is when you put on the tape, he's a guy that's really, really impressive. He had some really, really good film against some good competition. Middle Tennessee State played Alabama and Missouri, and he was a guy that really stood out in film. But, even in his other games, he was a first team Conference USA. He's just a really, really good football player, really, really mean. He has that mean streak that you want in a guard. He played primarily right guard for Middle Tennessee State. He's a guy that I think Clemson could definitely use. They kind of lacked some of that push at the guard position this year and some of that nastiness at guard, especially with, Walker Parks going down and obviously Marcus Tate was limited. So I think, this could be a really, really good addition and a really good fit if things coalesce. And, Rutledge, being from Middle Tennessee State, obviously they just let go of their head coach, Rick Stockstill, which if you're a longtime Clemson fan, you probably know that name. He was a longtime Clemson assistant for, Danny Ford and Ken Hatfield and Tommy West. So he's a guy that has, been around the block for a good bit, and he obviously had a really, really long coaching career at Middle Tennessee State. And so he's a guy that has, you have that Clemson connection, and he's a guy that still has a lot of ties to the area, and is uh, definitely nudging Rutledge in our direction. So I think this is a really good opportunity. You have kind of a guy that's kind of advocating for you, and obviously Matt Luke. Making the hire of Matt Luke, it definitely makes it more intriguing for him as a guy. It's like, okay, I'm looking to go to a place where I can put on some really good tape for the NFL, a guy that, at a premium position. And, Clemson has a guy that has put guys in the league and has a track record of putting guys in the league. So I think this would be a really good opportunity if things mesh. And obviously Matt Luke, he still has to figure out what he has in the room and whether or not Rutledge fits into what he wants this offensive line to look like. But I seem to think, based off of, how things are progressing so far, that I think this could be a really, really good fit. So I think this would be a really, really nice addition for Clemson. And it's a guy that is proven, has played a lot of football, and could definitely start for you and give you, quality reps at, really either guard position. So that's really intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We could obviously use it. Everybody, anybody who's a Clemson fan, and everybody on here, I'm assuming is very familiar with Clemson football and the way that our season went along the offensive line. We need help. We needed a change of direction. Hopefully, we've gotten the change of direction when it talks about, when we talk about the voice in the room, the leader in the room, and Matt Luke. So now the next step is, I think, bringing in at least a transfer, maybe two guys that can come in and try to compete and push guys for starting positions. Because, I mean, you saw when we started stacking up injuries, particularly at the guard position, there was just no depth behind them, and certainly no consistent depth. It was musical chairs for basically the rest of the season for the Clemson Tigers, and that's just something that's not sustainable. We got to get guys in there that can be consistent week to week, that you know what you're going to get, and hopefully that starts happening here soon. So hopefully he's a fit. Hopefully he's a guy that likes Clemson. The Clemson coaches like what they hear when they talk to him. They like what they see physically from him, and like you say, he's got ties to the Clemson area. I think his mom, really, really close to Clemson. So I'm sure.
Yeah, and he's from Georgia, so
I'm sure that'll benefit us quite a bit. Just the area and the location and the proximity to home. So that's certainly not going to hurt us. And boy, do we need some transfer portal guys, particularly on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line. So, I mean, let's hope we get him. Question for you, man. How aggressive do you think Clemson continues to be in the transfer portal? Obviously, we see they're being pretty aggressive when it comes to offensive line. They are looking to land probably a couple guys there. Any other positions you think that they'll be aggressive at, or do you think this is kind of where they're going to settle? Is just offensive linemen, try to get a couple of those guys, and then see what happens in recruiting?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think we're going to know more after this weekend. Dabo mentioned in the bowl press conference that they have a team meeting coming up, and they're going to know more about where guys stand and what their future plans are. And so I think we're going to know more, because I think a lot of it depends on who else decides to enter the transfer portal. Obviously, they have until what is it, January 4th?
January 4th. I think it's open for 30 days.
Period, right? Yeah.
Yep, 30 days. It used to be 45, now it's 30. So.
Right. So they have until that to make their portal decisions and all of that. So I think all of it is going to depend on that, and I think that's why. And I think it's probably going to frustrate some Clemson fans during the month that things maybe not move quite as quickly as you want, as far as guys that they're going to target. And I think one of the things that you have to remember is Dabo is going to recruit and do this his way. And, you're not always going to hear about guys that they're talking to and guys that they're looking at. But I really think that, this behind the scenes, Dabo is going to be working hard at, looking at guys and evaluating guys and getting guys on campus. And we'll know more as the weeks go on. But I think that, overall, I think Dabo is going to be, pretty aggressive in this cycle. And obviously he's already mentioned explicitly that offensive line is a spot that they're trying to make a couple of key additions. And I think they're going to, evaluate some of the other ones. We've already talked about defensive end, and
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see if they get a wide receiver. I see some people in the chat mentioning that. I think that could happen. Maybe if the right opportunity presents itself, but I don't have any strong, basis for that. I certainly wouldn't mind it, because it kind of gives you an insurance policy for next year. Because I don't think this wide receiver room is poor, and I think they're actually a lot. I think they're a little bit better than maybe they looked at times this year. But I still think you could use a veteran. Maybe possibly a veteran, possibly one and done type of guy that's looking to, go to the league. I think that would be a really good addition, and especially someone that's explosive and can create some big plays, because, that's kind of been something that's been missing in this passing offense for 3 years now.
Right.
So I'll be really intrigued to see what other positions they're looking at, because again, it's a very fluid situation, and I think they'll know more. If more guys start to declare, okay, listen, it's time for me to move on. Mm-hmm. And but I do think the huge wave of it has passed. I don't expect a whole lot more, but we'll find out more after this weekend.
Yeah, I think there'll probably be a few more transfers. Dabo even mentioned it in his bowl game press conference that he did with the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. And he mentioned that, this Sunday they have their first team meeting since the season ended, to kind of head into bowl prep and stuff like that. So, they were asking him more along the lines of who was going to be available for, kind of the bowl game. But same type of deal. We'll know more, probably early next week to middle of next week about, if there are going to be a few more transfers, which it would not surprise me if there was. But I do think Clemson is going to be far more aggressive this offseason in the transfer portal when it comes to targeting guys and bringing guys in than they ever have been in the past. And simply because of necessity, really. I mean, we need it, obviously, along the offensive line. I think we could definitely use a guy or two at edge, possibly a guy at wide receiver, like you mentioned, with the exit of Bo Collins, looking to go elsewhere. Maybe we get a, one and done type guy like you're talking about. And then, we'll just see from there. We've already had 8 guys enter the transfer portal. So, who knows what else is going to happen? Anything could happen. Very fluid situation in college football. It's absolutely an insane time, but it's good for us because we have tons to talk about. So I'm not complaining. Plus, it makes it super interesting when games are not being played. So speaking of portal guys and losing players and players entering the transfer portal and us targeting other guys, let's talk about a guy that isn't a transfer portal get, but a guy that we landed on our own roster, and that is none other than Barrett Carter, announcing earlier today that he will be returning for his senior season. I can't think of a better way to come into tonight's show than me clicking up and right before we go on to every show, I kind of go and I browse the internet for any big Clemson news that may have happened that I haven't seen as I've been working throughout the day or something like that. And I did that before we came on the show tonight, about an hour before, I think, and I saw the news that Barrett Carter had mentioned or had announced that he was coming back and indeed playing his senior season at Clemson. I was stoked to find out about it. I was so happy when I heard it. It's definitely something that Clemson needed to have happen. Otherwise, I think we would have had to go to the transfer portal and maybe get a more veteran guy for linebacker, just based off the depth. Not that we have, not that we don't have talented guys. Obviously, we got Sammy Brown coming in. We got talented guys behind him, but just the lack of experience. So how excited were you to hear that Barrett Carter is coming back for his senior season? We may not have Trotter, but we got Carter, and that's something we could definitely live with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a big deal. It's definitely a big deal, and it was kind of one. I was like, man, this is one of those decisions that's gonna determine a lot of how Clemson goes about attacking the portal on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And this is a big deal. He's a guy that definitely could have declared. I think he had a pretty. I think he had a decent season, but I felt like I felt like he could have been better. He was definitely shaky in some spots early in the year and at times late in the year. So I think the consensus was that, man, he's a really talented player, great coverage guy, but tackling and run support, that's something he still has to develop. He's not always he's an instinctive player, but he doesn't always, he isn't always consistent in his assignment and stuff like that. But I think the athleticism is through the roof. And, obviously I think he had, coming back for another year, I think there's a good chance for him, to kind of hone his craft at playing the position of linebacker. I think he's kind of been doing it all, but I think now, next year is a big chance for him to really show his skills, especially with with Trotter declaring for the NFL draft, which we'll talk about. So he's going to be kind of the star of that linebacker room now, and excited to see what he does. And he brings back that veteran presence and leadership as well. And so that's exciting. And he's a guy that I think could definitely use another year and to really build on that draft stock. And I think he has the potential to be a first-round pick, late, maybe early second. If he does hone those things that he didn't do so well this year. But it's a big deal for this defense. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he had an absolutely killer season the season before, right? I guess that would be his sophomore season, had a killer season, right?
Yep.
And then this kind of year, his junior season, his PFF grades kind of went down in almost every single category. Not that he had a bad year by any means, but obviously he's got some improvements to make. He has something to gain by coming back to Clemson. He can definitely improve his draft stock. He's going to be a guy that's going to win the combine. He's just a freaky athletic dude.
Definitely.
They're going to get out there. They're going to see him run. They're going to see him do his cone drills, all that stuff. They're going to fall in love with Barrett Carter. But I think he can do a lot for his NFL stock by coming back this season, improving on some of those shortcomings that he had. Tackling was kind of a little bit of an issue for Barrett Carter this season, which was kind of weird after the season that he previously had. So, hopefully he gets some of that cleaned up this year. He's going to be an absolute beast on this defense. Have no doubt about it. I don't care if he had somewhat of a down season this year. So I saw somebody mention in the comment section, it's like getting a 6-star recruit. Absolutely, dude. Couldn't be any happier. He's going to have a great season. He's going to be an anchor for this defense. He's going to be a major contributor. Probably one of the reasons this defense is one of the top defenses again in 2024. Couldn't be more excited that we got Barrett Carter coming back. So I'm jacked up about it. But with that said, that's not the case for every single NFL-worthy player on the Clemson roster. We have had a few so far declare for the NFL draft, and it is well-deserved. So make no mistake about it. I have no hard feelings for any of these guys. I have no hard feelings that they're not playing in the bowl game. I understand their perspective. I understand their decision. We got 3 guys so far, and that's Jeremiah Trotter Jr., absolute monster of a season, absolute beast of a linebacker. He was truly the anchor for this defense, the quarterback of the defense, the guy that kind of, the cog that made all the wheels turn, right? And that was Jeremiah Trotter Jr. this year. And we got Nate Wiggins, which is an absolute just not lockdown corner. I mean, the dude is an absolute beast. He deserves all the accolades that he is going to get postseason, and all the praise that we heap on him on this show. Is he perfect? No. But is he one of the best cornerbacks in the country, in my opinion? Absolutely. And then finally, Ruka Rohoro entered the NFL or made his decision to forego the bowl game and focus on the NFL draft. And he's going to enter his name into the 2024 NFL Draft. Can't speak enough about him. I mean, it was huge last year when Tyler Davis and Rook came back as kind of a tandem, a pair. They were going to come back together and do their thing, and they absolutely did this season. Rook is an amazing defensive tackle. He's just a guy that is really good in the run game. He's really good in pass rush. He's just a defensive lineman that can do it all. I wish all three of these dudes the best. I hope they get drafted extremely high and have very long, successful seasons in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we kind of talked a little bit about Nate Wiggins last week, but obviously Trotter and Rook making their decisions this week. I just can't say enough about those guys. Just all three had pretty nice seasons. Obviously, Trotter was a Butkus Award finalist. Shame he wasn't able to win it, but, it is what it is. I definitely would have put my vote in for him, but, I think it went to Peyton Wilson of NC State, which, that's fine. Peyton Wilson had a really, really big year, but I thought Trotter was as good as anybody, especially the back half of the year. And
you knew it was going to come down to those two. Unfortunately, it didn't go our way.
Right. And Nate Wiggins, obviously, just one of the best cover corners I think I've seen at Clemson. Just really, really good football player. And Rook, I think he's a guy that's going to be really, really good in the league. I don't know if he's going to work his way into first round consideration, but I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen a lot of second round mocks for him. I think he's a guy that scouts are going to fall in love with his skill set and his physical ability. He was a guy that hadn't played a lot of football, coming from Canada when he committed. That was a pure evaluation, pretty much. Did I say is Canada or Michigan? Now I'm blanking. It's one of those. He's from up north, but wasn't a very highly recruited guy. But he came in and just developed each and every year, and now and has turned into a really, really good player. So he's a guy I think is going to get a lot of consideration as an early round pick in their draft. So I'm excited to see where he goes. He's been a pleasure to watch. But really, all three guys, had pretty phenomenal careers at Clemson. So I'm excited to see where they end up.
Yeah, he's from Michigan, by the way.
Yeah.
Looked it up for you.
Yeah, I knew it was one of those. I don't know why.
Just ask John. The UP up there in Michigan. That's basically Canada. Am I right, John? Yeah. I don't know. We got our Michigan guy in here. John, thanks for stopping by, man. You're always supporting the show. Appreciate you. You guys can check him out over on the Michigan channel. I'm sure he's got a ton of stuff going on because they're in the playoffs. So, Rook, a Michigan man, but more widely known as a Clemson man, and that's much better. So, John says, "Yep, that's basically Canada." So, see, you were wrong and right all at the same time. Look at that.
See, I'm not that. I wasn't that bad at geography.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Minus a boundary here or there, man.
Yeah.
But man, done a lot in the show so far. We got 80 people in here, Jordan, right now. I don't know if you know that. But guys, go ahead and please hit that like button for us. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Me and Jordan are here every Thursday at 7 p.m., chopping it up, breaking down Clemson football, talking about recruiting, talking about our players, coaches, everything in between, chopping it up in the comment section with you guys at the end of every single show. So if you are not a regular here, we hope that you become one. Again, we are here every Thursday, 7 p.m. And yes, that will include the off season. The show doesn't go anywhere. We just keep talking like games are being played, even though they're not. But a ton of stuff to talk about. Still left to go tonight. Jordan, I think let's shift a little bit to some recruiting news. Clemson had quite the weekend when it comes to the recruiting trail. We got quite a few commits. We got all sorts of stuff going on. Early signing days coming up here really, really soon. The coaches are out on the recruiting trail right now. absolutely killing it out there, trying to get the best talent possible to come to our Clemson Tigers. So, what do we got for our recruiting update?
Yeah. So, as you guys know, over the weekend, Clemson was able to land three commitments in the 2024 and 2025 classes. Just really big weekend. And it started with the. Actually, I'm trying to make sure I got my time. I'm not even going to bother going in chronological order. But you get three commitments over the weekend. In 2025, defensive lineman Amari Adams, 2025 wide receiver Charles. Oh man, what? Hold on, I do not want to mess up his name. Yeah, Carlton Preston. I don't know why I was about to say Charleston. Now you see, I can't read. Should have put my contacts in before I did this show. And then also 2024 interior offensive lineman Watson Young, you were able to flip from App State. So really big weekend for Clemson. Obviously, the big fish was Amari Adams in the 2025 class, a guy that, from in-state, number one player in the state of South Carolina from South Florence. Just a really big get. A guy that, you competed with South Carolina for pretty much the entire way. South Carolina was considered the favorite for a lot of his recruitment. But I think the relationship with Nick Eason was able to win him over. Obviously, big surprise, not really. But Nick Eason continues to do work, on the recruiting trail, and this was a really big get. I think especially because Clemson had kind of been falling behind a little bit in the in-state recruiting the past couple of cycles. Obviously, in the 2024 class, you miss on the three in-state offensive linemen all going to South Carolina, Blake Franks, Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson. So I think this was a big deal to get a guy that, the Gamecocks led for a while, and get him into the fold. I think it's a really nice recruiting win. Obviously, it's still early. A lot of things can change, but early on in the cycle, that's a really big deal and a really nice get for Nick Eason and this defensive staff. And then, wide receiver Carlton Preston from Virginia, Woolridge, Virginia, smaller on the smaller side, slot guy, really fast. He's been a fast riser in that class. I will not, I will not be surprised. When he shoots up the rankings later. Obviously the evaluation period is still early in the 2025 cycle, but when people get eyes on him, I think people are going to see how good he really is, because his tape is really impressive, and he kind of has that track speed that Clemson hasn't really had at wide receiver a whole bunch the past few years. So really exciting, really big get on that front. And then in the 2024 class, and, I had mentioned the recruiting misses at offensive line this cycle, but you were able to flip former App State commit Watson Young from Daniel High School, which obviously will probably make a lot of Clemson fans that are watching right now roll their eyes. But, I honestly, I think when I watch this tape, I see the ability. I'm not going to, blow smoke and say that, oh my God, he's going to be this elite, this elite prospect. But some people I trust as far as recruiting evaluations seem to think that he's a guy that could have been a really good G5 offensive lineman, multi-year all conference type player. And so I think that's a good guy to have in your room. And maybe he builds his way up into a starter. Obviously, having a guy like Matt Luke, you feel a little bit more excited about maybe the potential of him developing into something. So honestly, I don't hate the take. I know a lot of people, like I said, get frustrated with the Daniel High School pipeline and some of the takes, but honestly, this is not one of those where you're kind of like, what's going on? Like when you watch him, I think he has really good tape. And I think he's a guy that could definitely play at this level. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm not a perfect evaluator of talent. Nobody is. But honestly, as far as these late flyers go, this is not one of the worst ones I've seen, and I see the vision. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've gotten some good ones out of Daniel High too. So I mean, it's not all, it's we've had some really good players come out of Daniel High.
Absolutely.
No hate for Daniel High. Didn't they just win another state championship out there?
Yes, they did. That was a thriller. Yeah, they continue to be one of the best high school programs in the state. So
Three out, 3 out of the last 4 or something like that.
yeah,
So they're
crazy.
killing it, man. So obviously some good prospects that Clemson brought in this weekend and got commitments for. I'm sure the South Carolina Gamecocks are just thrilled with the Clemson Tigers right now. We beat them in the game. We take one of their top recruits, and we take a former grad of theirs and turn him back into a Clemson coach for the second time. So,
And then
uh,
last night on the hardwood, you beat them in
and then
basketball. So
and then you beat them in basketball. I mean, they just toting L after L after L at this point. So, but then again, nobody feels sorry for the South Carolina Gamecock fans or the team. So, um,
before we move on from recruiting, I do want to touch on two guys that Clemson is still waiting decisions from in
yep,
linebacker Bradley Shaw and offensive lineman Elijah Thurman. Bradley Shaw is a guy, I don't believe he has announced his commitment date yet, but I expect it to be pretty soon and sometime this month. And then Elijah Thurman is announcing on Monday, I believe. He's a guy that's kind of been projected to South Carolina for a while. But
yep,
I would kind of hold off kind of writing that one. I do think there has been with some early dividends, I'll say, with the hire of Matt Luke, and I think it's something that based off of what he said and some of the things that he said about this hire. I do think it has made him look at Clemson. Maybe not. I mean, he was always really interested in Clemson,
yep.
but I think he's a guy that has made more seriously with with this hire. So I would hold off on calling that one a done deal as we approach his commitment. So I'm really interested to see how that one turns out. I really like where Clemson is for Bradley Shaw, by the way, too. So if you land those two guys, I think it would be a nice kind of bow on this 2024 class. Then you attack your needs in the transfer portal and kind of see where the numbers shake out from there. But yeah, that's about all I have for recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. John says Thurman canceled his visit to South Carolina recently.
Yes, he did. Yes,
So,
he did.
uh, looking good for the Tigers. Looking good for the Tigers, man. All right. So before we kind of transition into the bowl matchup, I've seen the comment section here mention several guys, and they want to get our thoughts on several guys. Will they end up going to the NFL? Will they not? A lot of those, or will they transfer, or whatever the case may be, right? So a lot of questions about Will Shipley, Phil Maffa, guys like that about entering the transfer portal or more specifically going to the NFL draft. Do you have any feel on Will Shipley and what he is going to do? I think Will Maffa's probably, or Phil, excuse me, Will Maffa. Phil Maffa is probably a lock to stay at Clemson. I don't really see Phil Maffa going anywhere. Um, that's just my personal opinion. But do you see Will Shipley jumping ship to the NFL? No pun intended there.
Yeah, these types of things, it can always, it's always a fluid situation, and it could change at a moment's notice. But my read on things is that a return is where return to Clemson is more likely than not for Will Shipley. Obviously, like I said, nothing's set in stone. He's gonna have to announce himself. But I do think there's a decent chance that Shipley is back. Shipley and Maffa are back for 2024. And I think the good thing is that I know for sure that Will Shipley is not entering the transfer portal. So, there had been some speculations about that, but he's narrowed it down. He's not entertaining the transfer portal. He's either going to go to the NFL or come back to Clemson. And I think right now, if I would lean towards him coming back, which would be a big deal, for Clemson's offense and for next year. But again, we'll see how things shake out, and obviously he is still having those conversations. But
I think we'll know probably more heading into next week, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned the team meeting on Sunday. They're going to start getting into bowl prep here soon, getting ready for the Gator Bowl and all of that stuff. So, I mean, it's going to kind of be telling if guys aren't at practice, right? It's going to be noticed if they're not at practice. And if they're not at bowl practice, that probably means something. So I think the dust will settle on some of that. I don't think it's super surprising that we haven't heard any formal, kind of comments out of them. Maybe Will Shipley is waiting to see what his NFL draft grade is going to be. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think if he goes anywhere, just like you, I think he'll go to the NFL. If not, he'll be right back here in Tiger Town playing beside his buddy Phil Maffa for the 2024 season. Will gets in with the super chat for us, Jordan.
Will, our resident Notre Dame fan, has been on the show multiple times. Good to see you, buddy, and thank you for the super chat and the support of the show. He asks, what do you guys think of Bo Collins to the Irish? Good fit? Freedom is an elite high school team in Woolbridge, so I'm sure Carlton is well coached, in reference to Carlton Preston. Mm-hmm. I think Will, I think it's a really good fit. I think, Bo Collins isn't going to provide you that, elite number one wide receiver, just, 1,000-yard type of guy. But I think what Notre Dame has lacked is, some consistency as far as, getting open, route running, all of that. And I think Bo Collins provides a really, really nice floor for that wide receiver room if you're able to land him. And it's he's a guy that's going to give you some pretty, some really quality snaps. And we'll see. I know you. I know Notre Dame just they let go of Chansey Stuckey and brought in Mike Brown, I believe, from Wisconsin. Kind of a lesser known name, but I've heard good things about him. So I'm really interested to see kind of what that next step, Bo Collins takes in his development. But I think it's a good fit overall. I think he's going to fit in well there. And I think the culture at Notre Dame is pretty similar to Clemson's, and so I don't think it'll be a very difficult transition. And obviously, he was considering Notre Dame pretty heavily out of high school. I think they finished second or third in his recruitment. So I think he'd be in a really good position there, and I think he'd have a chance to be a really, really, really nice contributor for Notre Dame in next year. So I think it would be a good fit. I like that spot for him.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I think both parties could benefit from it. Bo Collins could obviously benefit from a change in scenery, kind of just a fresh start somewhere else, somewhere where he was obviously considering before committing to Clemson, and Notre Dame could obviously use some help at wide receiver, and albeit that Bo Collins is not a wide receiver one, he is a very serviceable and good wide receiver at the same time. So I think both parties could benefit, and hope he lands with you guys, Will. I think it'd be good.
Absolutely. And obviously just the veteran leadership, because I know, they're really young at receiver. I think that would be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of – that would be huge. That would be huge right there because he's obviously very experienced. He knows the ropes of college ball and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, Jordan, I think it's that time of the show where we shift gears to the Gator Bowl, okay? we haven't talked about Clemson's bowl matchup. It came out after our show last week, obviously, on Selection Sunday, which, wow, was Selection Sunday crazy or what? Did anything crazy happen on Selection Sunday?
I don't know,
I
man.
didn't.
It seemed pretty uneventful to me.
Yeah, man. They just revealed the top 4 teams, and everybody was like, "Yeah, man, that makes sense." All right, let's
No
let's
controversy
fire
at all.
let's fire up the playoff, man. No, but in all seriousness, what a way for the last year of the 14 playoff to play out. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later, but right now I want to focus on Clemson's bowl game, the Gator Bowl. They obviously take on the Kentucky Wildcats. Clemson coming into the Gator Bowl at 8-4. Kentucky Wildcats coming in at 7-5. Obviously, the kind of weird thing with Bob Stoops, or excuse me,
Mark Stoops.
Mark Stoops, with being Texas A&M's new head coach and then not being Texas A&M's new head coach. So that was kind of weird. But he's a Kentucky man through and through. Rest assured, all Kentucky Wildcat fans, he is not going anywhere. But Clemson 8-4, Kentucky Wildcats 7-5. They will play on December 29th. I think it's a noon kickoff in Jacksonville, Florida. So Duval County, the home of once Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence and once great Clemson running back Travis Etienne. Shout out to those dudes. So big matchup for Clemson coming. It's not the biggest of biggest bowls, but it's also not the bowl for the I don't know what
it's not the Pinstripe Bowl.
Yeah, there you go. It's not the Pinstripe Bowl. No coach will be dunked in mayonnaise at the end of this bowl. So at the end of the day, it's not the biggest bowl out there, but it is a fairly prestigious bowl. This is Clemson's 10th time in the Gator Bowl.
Yep. A lot of memories.
Our 19th consecutive bowl game. So shout out to the Clemson Tigers going to 19 bowl games in a row. 10th time in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. So what are your thoughts when you heard about this matchup? First and foremost, were you sad that we weren't in the Holiday Bowl? Were you sad that we didn't get any other bowl game? Did you think we would get any other bowl game, or did you kind of know it was going to be the Gator Bowl?
Well, obviously Sunday was a huge craziness. It was a lot because a lot of bowl projections and the bowl committees. When these bowl games are being set up, there's a lot of communication from the bowl committees to the universities that they're looking at, and there's multiple teams that that they're looking at for each spot in their respective bowl games. And with Florida State being left out of the playoff, that changed a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that stuck them in the Orange Bowl. And then it seemed like, okay, so it was going to be, everyone thought, okay, Florida State's going to get into the playoff, and then Louisville will take the Orange Bowl and things will kind of shake out there. And when that didn't happen, everything kind of went out of whack. And, after watching the ACC championship game, I see Big Mick in the comment section. I was just getting to that. There were a lot of bowl committees that were kind of out on Louisville, and so there was kind of some apprehension there, and some bargaining and pushing and pulling from the different bowls about what teams they wanted between Louisville and NC State and Clemson and UNC. It was such a mess, and we found out later than we normally do in the day that Clemson would be playing in the Gator Bowl. And honestly, I'm happy. I think this is it's a bowl game that a lot of Clemson fans will be able to travel to. I think the Jaguars have a game later that week. So if you want a home game, if you wanted to, Clemson fans could make a whole a really nice weekend trip out of the thing, and go to the Clemson game, and then go watch Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne play. I think it's a good bowl. It's a bowl that Clemson has had some good success in, and Yeah, I think it's better than the Holiday Bowl. I did think it would have been interesting if the projections of Clemson and Oregon State had come to fruition, but obviously that was kind of lessened by the fact that DJ Uyunglele entered the transfer portal, and then their backup quarterback Aiden Childs entered the transfer portal. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of out. So I'm happy with this bowl game, and Kentucky is a team that didn't have the best of years, maybe not the year they were expecting, but there's sentimental reasons to get excited. Obviously, this was Dabo's first bowl win, was against Kentucky in the Music City Bowl back in 2009.
2009.
So we've kind of come full circle in a way.
Full circle, man.
So that'll be interesting, and obviously Kentucky will be without their star running back Ray Davis. Clemson obviously will have multiple NFL guys opting out, so obviously it's not going to be both teams at their best, but I think there's it's a good chance for Clemson to get another win over an SEC team, and
right.
It kind of builds some momentum heading into next year. So we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah, and look, I think that's the big thing. That's why bowl games are so important, and they're so beneficial to teams because you heard even Dabo Swinney talk in his presser for the Gator Bowl about creating a JV team and starting to build that depth and develop guys on your roster. Guys that didn't get a ton of playing time during the season. This is the time of year when you can set up that JV team and kind of really start focusing and developing those guys that are already on your roster. It's super important, heading into spring and then summer workouts and then back into fall camp and back into another season. So, and not to mention, just as Jermaine Woods said, it'd be nice to end the season on a nice 5-game winning streak. Be super nice. I couldn't agree any more. Finish strong. This season wasn't what Clemson thought it was going to be heading into it. It didn't go the way that we thought it was. But guess what? Those dudes in that locker room, they fought like hell. They responded, and they have the potential to get another SEC win under their belt for the 2023 season. And, oh, by the way, end with a nice 5-game winning streak and get some extra bowl practice preparing for the 2024 season. So it's a win-win-win all the way around, I think, for Clemson. Will we be without several players? Obviously, we listed off, the 7 or 8 guys that have already entered the transfer portal. But guess what? It's all right. We got some dudes. We're going to be just fine. But Kentucky's dealing with the same thing. They got tons of transfers as well. So,
yeah, and I mentioned the guys going to the NFL, and obviously, I love any opportunity to see this freshman class play another football game because they've been a lot of fun to watch. Hey, with Root going into opting out and going to the league, that means we get to see more Peter Woods.
That's right.
Shout out to Jermaine Woods.
Yes, sir.
Your son has been a lot of fun to watch this year, and excited to see what he shows in the bowl game.
As advertised, man. As advertised.
Absolutely.
Definitely lived up to that bidding, man. That freshman class has been amazing, and Peter Woods has definitely been a leader in that freshman class for sure. But yeah, like you said, Rook's out. Hey, Peter Woods, more playing time for him, more chance to see him, more chance to put some good stuff on tape. Can't wait to see it. The Gator Bowl is going to be great, man. And as you said, Clemson fans can kind of make a weekend of it. They can go see the Clemson Tigers roll up the Kentucky Wildcats, and then stay to see who Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne play that same weekend. So that'd be a great weekend. I wish I could make it. I'm not going to, but that would be a cool trip to do. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. See Clemson playing a good bowl game, and then see some good Clemson Tigers play in the league as well. But I think that'll do it for the bowl talk.
Yeah. We'll dive more into the matchup as we get later, and we'll do a whole preview for Kentucky and all of that. But obviously the main thing that people want to talk about now is transfer portal recruiting.
Absolutely.
I don't think we have anything more on the docket, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is the point in the time of the show, guys. I see we got 64 people in here right now. Thank you guys hanging out with us. We've been on here an hour and 20 minutes so far. We have got through our entire kind of plan portion, if you will, of the show. This is the part of the show where me and Jordan like to turn it over to you guys, the comment section, answer any questions that you guys may have or any topics that you guys would like us to cover that we haven't already covered in the show. So let's turn it over to the comment section. What you guys got tonight?
Man, I'm really proud of us. We went through all of that in an hour and 20 minutes.
I know that's an accomplishment for us. Normally,
with
we'd
how much
still
we
have
had to talk about.
yeah, we'd still have like 2 or 3 things left to talk about at this point usually, but we did pretty good powering through it.
Oh, John Sari mentions a good point. And he mentions Levon Kirkland being hired to the staff. Not really. It's not really clear what his role will be, but it seems to be more of an off-field type of role. More player relations. So I think that was another phenomenal hire. I mean, he's a guy I've been kind of waiting because he's a guy that has been around Clemson a ton and. He's been a great ambassador for the school. I love listening to him, on the Believe Clemson podcast. And I like to hear from him. And so I think that was really nice to see. I was just kind of waiting. Dad was got to give him a call at some point because I think he would be a great addition to the staff in some capacity. So really excited for Levon and to see him get that opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, you knew it was coming eventually.
Yeah.
And finally, I guess, the time was right and Dabo made the call and obviously Levon, accepted. Couldn't be happier to have him. I mean, he is a Clemson man through and through.
100%.
And if you guys have never seen his Believe Clemson podcast, you can see it right here on YouTube. It's great, man. Go check it out. I don't think any of us know Clemson quite as well as he does. So go check his podcast out.
Absolutely. Let's see. Michael asks, any news on Burning Stool? Yeah. Been a lot of rumors swirling around about him. My read so far is that he'll be back in 2024. Definitely there was some real smoke about him potentially transferring, but I think that has since come to pass. But we'll see. Again, these things are fluid; things can change at the drop of a hat. In this era of college football, I mean, you just saw the in-state rival. They're starting running back. It seemed like he was gonna stay, and they had got an NIL deal in place for him, and then all of a sudden. 12 hours later, he's announcing he plans to enter the transfer portal. So
he said, I'm staying. Psych. I'm getting the heck out of here with you crazy people. Yeah. Oh man. I know his Twitter's blowing up with South Carolina fans. Good Lord. John says he heard that someone on the internet say Brenningstool was convinced to stay. So I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff had conversations with him. So
yeah, more than just the coaching staff for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was I'll just leave it at that.
But to break bread a little bit. Break bread a little bit.
Yeah. Break bread in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Sean, I just wanted to highlight this. When did the Coots start toilet bowl practice? I love that one. That's pretty funny. I like that. Let's see. What are we talking about? Carl, I almost said, I don't even, I haven't been diagnosed with dyslexia, but man, I read Carlos like 3 different times, and that's not what that says. Yeah. Carl So too asks, who plays middle linebacker in the bowl? Well, Clemson has primarily played, 2 linebackers, on the field at any given time. So, my read is that you'll have Wade Woodaz and Barrett Carter, on both on the field, and you'll kind of rotate guys in here, in and out there. And Wade Woodaz is kind of the guy they've kind of moved around a lot. So we'll see what they decide to do there. But obviously that means more run for guys like Jamal Anderson and D. Creighton, Kobe McLeod. So again, it'll be interesting to see kind of what the game plan is, because now, obviously with Trotter gone, you don't really have a ton of proven guys outside of your two starters. So,
and it's a chance to get a peek at some of those guys that could get some serious playing time next year. So, not all bad.
John, that's when you're going to start bragging on men's basketball. Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but obviously this isn't a basketball show, but that was a really big win for Clemson last night. Pretty frustrating for a lot of that game. A lot of shots weren't falling. 7-minute drought to end the first half. PJ Hall, was kind of held in check in that game, but you got some big minutes in that second half from some other key guys. Chauncey Wiggins had a big game. Ian Shefflin. And South Carolina, they did a better job defending, I think, and kind of taking it to South Carolina a little bit more and playing through PJ Hall, because while he wasn't scoring, giving him the ball, draws a lot of attention, and it created opportunities for other guys. And they did a good job down the stretch of closing that one out. That's a really good Gamecock team. I was kind of coming in, I was kind of skeptical about them, because I thought, maybe, they hadn't played the greatest of schedules up to that point. Like, they hadn't really played a team that, I thought, okay, well, that's a measuring stick, and we know how good they are. Like Clemson has, going on the road to beat Alabama and stuff like that. But, that's a good team. They have some really, really good shooters. I mean, Michi Johnson, it seemed like he was hitting from everywhere. And that's a team that's going to be a tough out in SEC play. So that's going to be a really good win, I think, down the stretch for Clemson, and a good resume builder. It's already a quad 1 win. We'll see if it stays that way, but even a quad 2 is a nice resume builder, and it's definitely better than a loss like you did last year. And
certainly,
like you did last year, and that was not a very good Gamecock team.
No,
and that obviously hurt your tournament resume, and was one of the reasons why you were left out. So. Good win, gritty win. Shots weren't falling. You didn't shoot 50% from 3 like you did against Alabama, but you got it done, and that's a big deal. Let me see. K Klubnik Enthusiast asks thoughts on Julian Fleming. Obviously, the former 5-star recruit Clemson was heavily in on, announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal from Ohio State. I've seen a lot of Clemson fans kind of clamoring, is like, oh man, this is a guy we have to go get. I don't know. I wouldn't be against it. Like, if Clemson were to go grab him, I wouldn't be upset. He's a guy that's played a lot of football. I think that my biggest concerns are he had a lot of injury issues while he was at Ohio State. The production wasn't always there, and he's not the most explosive receiver. He hasn't really, like, I haven't been blown. Like, when I've watched Ohio State play, like, Julian Fleming didn't jump off the screen to me. I don't know. Maybe a change of scenery would kind of change that. He's a good receiver. I think he had 500 receiving yards this past year. Not this past year, but in 2022 with CJ Stroud. But I haven't really seen the big playability that I think Clemson would need to go after. So I don't know. I think there are other receivers I would probably take over him, but I wouldn't be upset if Clemson went and got him. Let me see. Greg says, if FSU would have won bigger, they would have been in. They have no offense, great D, but no O. They haven't been a national championship team to me, even at their best. Clemson should have beat them. Greg, I think there's a lot to to what you're saying. I agree. I don't think Florida State, especially in their current form, without Jordan Travis, one of the 4 best teams in college football. So
Yeah.
in that sense, I understand why they did it, but at a certain point, it can't be about, you can't be using these nebulous metrics like, oh man, how much is Jordan Travis worth to this team, and how much does Jordan Travis affect how good this team is? Like, that's such a subjective criteria that you can't actually like quantify. Like, how I don't understand like how you can measure that. And Florida State went undefeated. They went and scheduled 2 SEC teams in the non-conference game, beat both of them. One with their backup quarterback. They ran through the ACC, and they were undefeated as a Power 5 conference champion. I know that's not a criteria to get into the playoff, but I think they had done what they needed to do, and I thought they earned a chance to play for a national championship, and that was taken away from them. So I mean, that's I have no love for Florida State, that's for sure. But I definitely felt for them there. Like, that's unfortunate. That's something that was never. I really thought, I was, oh man, they didn't really look great against Louisville, but man, that defense was played lights out, and I just feel like you can't. The loss of a quarterback shouldn't be able to punish a team for losing a player like that. I don't get that. And devaluing the importance of the other 21 players on offense and defense that helped Florida State go 13-0. Like, I just don't. I can't. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, look, I know we made jokes on it on this show earlier, but honestly, it baffled me. Like, I was shocked. I was shocked that they actually put Alabama in over Florida State. And look, I've heard all the arguments on both sides. Alabama's a better team. Okay, that's fine. I understand they're a better team. Not saying they're not a better team, but you can't tell me that Florida State didn't earn an opportunity to see what they could do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's not up to the committee to make the best matchups for the playoffs. That's not their criteria. That's not their job. And this, I know it's always been a part of their bylaws apparently, but this new arbitrary, we can make decisions based off of, players injured and how that may affect future play on the field in the playoff. That is bogus, dude. And I realize that it's a real criteria that they can use because obviously they used it, but that's got to go. Like, with this new 12-team playoff, that kind of language in their ability to leave teams out has to go because, I mean, they're a Power 5 conference champion team that didn't lose a game. And you literally told them, oh, well, yeah, hey, all those other guys that played super hard and busted their butt for 2 games without Jordan Travis to stay undefeated, although they were not pretty wins, they were still wins. You told them that didn't matter. You just told a whole team that an undefeated season, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because this team's better than you. And it's I'm not going to go into the SEC bias and all that because I don't think that's what it is. I think money runs college football. And I think it was, truly a money decision. And they thought they would get better ratings putting Alabama in the playoffs. I really do. I think it's really that simple. But it's always funny to see the 1 year that the SEC was threatened to be left out. Suddenly we care about what players' teams are missing. And suddenly that becomes an important key in choosing who makes the playoffs and who doesn't.
That's never been something that's been consistently applied.
I've never heard that mentioned, not one time in a debate for who should make the college football playoff. Never, not one time. But this year it was there. So, it is what it is. It sucks for Florida State. I, just like you, I had no love lost for me for Florida State. I don't, particularly like them. I don't particularly hate them, but I'm not a fan of Florida State. But yeah, I 100% think Florida State got screwed. I mean, they absolutely got screwed. Sucks for them. Sucks for those players that went out there and put it on the line all season and came up undefeated, and apparently that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
You know, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. What's done is done. It ain't going to change. You know, for me, it's just, you know, you just kind of move on. But I think it's a terrible precedence to set, you know, and I know it probably won't matter because we're moving to a 12-team playoff, but I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but
That
you know,
just a disappointing way to close the
yeah,
14 playoff era like that. I get it. There would have been controversy either way. I know
sure.
there would be people upset that he's like, you know, Alabama had the better win. They had the best win in the country, and you know they got better over the course of the year. Which,
Did they?
but
Because I mean,
I don't agree
did
necessarily.
anybody see the Iron Bowl?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody saw the Iron Bowl, but last time I checked, that was the week before they beat Georgia in the SEC title
They
game.
needed
So
a fourth and goal from Beijing, China to win that game.
fourth and goal from like the 37, Hail Mary, you know, pass into the corner of the end zone that somehow was caught.
That
But
was crazy, man.
yeah,
I
let's
couldn't believe
pretend like they just lost to Texas and then just ran roughshod over the rest of their schedule. Yeah, let's pretend that that's what happened.
it. Yeah,
It's not what happened.
right.
So
But
whatever.
I get. I don't agree with the decision. Like I just think that was the wrong decision. And we understand. Like there wasn't a lot. You know, there was no way you were going to choose. You know, between those teams and not have somebody that
Right. Yeah.
had an argument for why they should be in. But
Oh yeah.
I don't
There
understand how you leave an undefeated Power Five conference champion out and a team that did what they were supposed to do. I don't know, but I get that's, you know, that it's been talked about a bunch, you know, since Sunday. So I won't spend too much more time on it, and obviously can't do anything about it now.
Nope, absolutely not. Like I said, what's done is done. It ain't changing.
Okay, let me get a non-playoff question. Big Load asked about Walter Nolan. Clemson was high in his recruitment. I do not expect Clemson to pursue there. You don't really have a need at that defensive tackle. Really good player, but you don't have a need at defensive tackle. Yeah, I wouldn't expect Clemson to be a factor in that one anyway. Seems like that one's going to be more of a, you know, who gives me the most, you know. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't expect Clemson to reach out there. You don't have a need there. Let me see. I have to scroll back a little bit because there's been so many.
Yeah, there's a lot of
playoff talk. That's my fault, but I did want to address it a little bit.
I mean, we kind of had to, so it is what it is.
Let me see. I like this one. Like Mike asked, do you still expect there to be another coaching change after or before the bowl game? Well, I don't know if I've ever said I expect another one to happen, but I don't anticipate one. I wouldn't anticipate one, but I wouldn't rule it out for sure. But I wouldn't anticipate. I think these are the ones that are.
Yeah, I don't think so. And you know, I know where everybody's mind goes. It goes to Tyler Grisham and the wide receivers, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't think it's going to happen. You know, I think he at minimum is going to get another year. You know, some folks would be like, okay, I agree with that. Some Clemson fans are going to be like, I disagree. I think he needs to go now. But I just think Dabo has made the changes that he's going to make. I don't know. Here's my thing. if he was going to make another change, why would he wait?
Yeah.
Why would there be this gap in getting rid of Lemansky Hall, and making the coaching changes that we have? Why would there be this gap if he was planning on making another coaching change? I would think he would make it now. I don't really see what the purpose would be in waiting at this point. I don't think, like, I wouldn't think that, unless he sees something just catastrophic in the bowl game or the preparation in the bowl game and decides to do something then. But I really think this is probably the end of the coaching changes for this offseason anyway. But again, I could be wrong. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe he's got some other motive of why he's waiting to make another change.
Matt B asks, are Moore and Wesco early enrollees? Wesco, yes. Moore, no.
Yes.
Tampa Catholic doesn't let their players leave and graduate early like that. So TJ Moore will have to wait till the summer. But Bryant Wesco will be an early enrollee, so that'll be good. Big Load asks, starting wide receivers next year. Yeah, that's a good one. I based on what we have right now, I would say, as it stands now, obviously one or more of them could enter the portal tomorrow. I would say Adam Randall, Tyler Brown, and Antonio Williams. If you want to go 3, because
yeah,
and then I think you still have Troy Stellato working in. He'd be basically he would be kind of a co-starter, I think. Unless I'm missing it. Am I missing anybody?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, with Bo Collins gone, yeah, no. So I would go with those 3. And then we would see and I would go with those 3, and then Troy Stellato is kind of a.
You think you think Hamp Green and Brandon Spector are gone, or you think they?
I haven't heard any, and well, Hamp Green, I don't expect to go. I think he still has. How many years does he? I don't even remember how many years he has left. But Brandon Spector, I know, has another year if he wants to use it. I haven't heard any indication that he is, one way or the other. So I'm not really sure, to be honest, with those 2 particular guys. Hamp Green isn't a scholarship receiver, so I don't think. Him coming back or not wouldn't really affect it that much.
Yeah,
John Sarah, thank you.
Cole Turner.
I do think that would change things a little bit.
I just saw his comment. Yeah, how can we forget about Cole Turner? Well, because he didn't get to play.
He hasn't played all year.
You forget about him.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Cole Turner would definitely be in that conversation as well. And I think there'll be some competition there, because a lot of Tyler Brown, Antonio Williams, Cole Turner, they're all a little bit on the they're the shiftier, faster receivers. But I think, those are your core 5 that we just named. Cole Turner, Adam Randall, Cole Turner, Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, Troy Stellato so far. So we'll see. And then obviously the additions of Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, I think they'll have a very good opportunity to come in and play early. So they could be in the mix.
I'm just reading some of our comments here. Okay, let me get through it. Hamp and Spec gonna start.
Totally, man. Like they're a secret weapon. I'll say this about Hamp Green.
Here we go. Here's our new top 3, Jordan. Hamp, Spec, and Drew Sweeney. There we go.
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Oh man, I might have to turn a Clemson game off for.
Why not? Can you imagine that'd be the best offense in school history.
Trying to tell you, we'd be carving up defenses all over the country.
That's elite. we're white wide receiver U, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's not a recipe for winning. I can tell you that.
Uh,
Garrett says, "Please let Hampton Speck leave." I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
well, yeah, look, I'll say that. I'll say this about Hamp Green. I thought he did a really good job in return this year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think he provides special teams value, and you weren't getting the consistency out of that position earlier in the year. You know, Tyler
Right.
Brown was electric, but he wasn't, obviously wasn't fielding them all the time and wasn't making all the right decisions. But Hamp Green, he gave you that ball security. He made some guys miss when they needed to. He did a good job of flipping field position. Never took one back. He was close a couple. I thought he was close a couple times, but
Yeah.
he did a good job of just making the catch, securing the football, and then creating if there was an opportunity. And I thought, with where Clemson's offense was and where they were at that point in the year, I thought that's exactly what they needed. And, it helped you immensely in the Notre Dame games, the Notre Dame game, the South Carolina game, the North Carolina game. Hamp Green did some really good job, some really good things in the return game that helped you in the field position battle. So happy for him.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be upset if he came back, especially since, like I said, he's a walk-on. He's not on scholarship, so he doesn't affect the numbers. Let me see. Like Mike says, doesn't Cole Turner still technically have 4 years left?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, because he got injured early this season,
and
he redshirted. He redshirted his freshman season. So yeah, he's never burnt a year of eligibility yet. So, yeah, he's still got 4 years.
That is something. Yeah.
Shout out to Turner. He's going to be a junior and still have 4 years of eligibility.
Yeah, he'll be a junior academically, but a freshman
on the field.
On the field, that'll be something. Philip mentioned the Tigers have a 5-star kicker. Well, they don't give 5 stars to kickers, but I know what you mean. Yeah, Clemson has one of the top kickers in the 2024 class coming in Nolan Hauser.
Absolutely.
So that'll be nice. And he'll have an opportunity to come in and play early because from what I've been told, Robert Gunn is still struggling on kicks in practice. So we'll see if he makes a jump in the offseason, but I'm glad that there's a guy coming in to give him some competition. Because otherwise, Robert Gunn, pretty good. He has a great leg, great kickoff guy, but has not shown to have that consistency at the next level to be a field goal kicker. So
lack of accuracy, man. Doesn't matter if you can kick it a mile. If you can't get it between the goalposts, no one cares.
Todd Gwynn mentions, Mitch Jeter from South Carolina in the portal. Yeah, he is. He's looking. I that one kind of surprised me because, isn't he? Thought he was close to breaking a lot of South Carolina records if he hasn't already.
Dang, man.
And I don't know. I imagine he was being taken pretty good care of NIL wise. So that was a little surprising.
Todd, how many of y'all got in the portal now? I know I mentioned we got.
I think the number is. I don't.
We have 8 right now. I'm just wondering.
I think they have.
I keep hearing South Carolina guys leaving, and I'm just wondering.
Maybe they have more.
Yeah, maybe they have more. I don't know. Jermaine Ellis gets in and says, "Always enjoy your show, guys. Do you think Clemson should get a quarterback out of the portal?" Thanks, Jermaine. Appreciate you supporting.
It's 16. They said it's 16. Wow, I didn't realize it was that
16?
I knew Vanderbilt had like 16 guys in, but man, wow. I know a lot. Not a lot of them were contributors. There are a couple, but man, that is a lot. I didn't realize it was that much.
Wow.
But yeah, Jermaine, to answer your question, do you guys think Clemson should get a quarterback out of the portal? I've heard that a lot. I'm not going to say no definitively. I wouldn't be upset. I'll say this: I wouldn't be upset if Clemson brought in a guy to compete for that starting job and give Cade some competition.
Yeah,
Because
I wouldn't.
At this point, especially with Hunter Helms gone, and you don't really have anybody else. Chris Vezina is a guy that has a lot of physical talent, but has not shown that ability to be playable right now.
Yeah.
Unless he makes a massive jump in the offseason. So
then you got Paul Tyson. What is he going to do? Is he going to come back for another year?
I do not imagine a world where Paul Tyson beats out Cade Klubnik for the starting.
No, I don't either, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I wouldn't be against Clemson bringing in somebody to kind of push Cade a little bit, because it does seem that Chris Vezina, although has a high ceiling on him, he's a guy that's probably I know Jason Priester mentioned it when Chris Vezina came in. He was a guy that needed a year, maybe 2 years, right? So I think Cade could definitely benefit from somebody coming in and pushing him a little bit. But then again, I kind of don't see Clemson bringing a transfer portal quarterback in and opening up the competition. So I don't know what they're going to do. I wouldn't be upset if they brought in kind of maybe a veteran quarterback with a year or two left that could push him a little bit, or at a minimum mentor him. I don't know. But Cade definitely has some serious developing to do this offseason.
Yeah. I honestly, personally, I mean, if I were in Garrett Riley's shoes, I would be saying, listen, you got to go and let me get somebody.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he's inherited a situation that's wholly not his, as far as personnel, and you can't. If you hitch your wagon, it's a risk hitching your wagon to the hopes that Cade makes that significant jump. I would love it, and that would be great. But I don't know. I think some competition, couldn't hurt. I mean, you saw Nick Saban. Jalen Milroe ended up being the starter, but you saw him bring in Tyler Buckner from the transfer portal,
right?
And obviously he still had Ty Simpson on the roster, and so he had guys compete, and he had them compete for that job, and Jalen Milroe ended up winning out, and it worked out for Alabama because that was the guy that gave them the best chance to succeed. It was kind of bumpy, and he went through his road blocks, but I think maybe that competition, and especially when they sat him for the South Florida game, I thought that was kind of a wake up call. And
when he looked like a different player after he got benched.
Yeah,
he really did.
So I think Clemson could totally do something like that.
Yeah.
So and still give Cade every opportunity to be the guy, but just give him somebody that has a realistic chance of nipping at his heels. Because I do think complacency can set. I'm not saying that's definitely what Cade is doing, but I think complacency can set in when there's nobody challenging me for the job. I wouldn't be against it, Jermaine. See people asking about DJ and also Trevor Etienne.
We're not getting Trevor Etienne.
Should Clemson go after Trevor Etienne? I mean, I'd say yes for selfish reasons. I mean, there's the conventional wisdom. If you get Shipley and Moffa back, there's not a huge incentive to go get Trevor Etienne, but I do think that just having, he provides a different skill set in that running back room from his explosiveness, the speed. He is a big play guy, and he plays like his brother. So I would love that, even though the numbers don't necessarily dictate that Clemson goes and gets a transfer running back purely selfish reasons. And I think
we got a ton of guys on scholarship. I think we got 6 guys on scholarship right now.
Yeah.
And that's taking away the one Dominique Thomas that is transferring. So it just don't make sense.
That's not including and that's not even
Estime,
David Jumame coming in. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Jumame. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't make sense from a number standpoint. Would I love to have Trevor Etienne in the Clemson uniform? Obviously, it'd be great. But outside of Will Shipley or Phil Maffa or one of those guys leaving or both of those guys leaving, I don't think it would make very much sense. Nor do I think he would be interested in coming in and sitting behind a Will Shipley and a Phil Maffa to get whatever scraps that's left over as far as carries go. So I don't know.
John asked, "What makes you think Riley is already soured on Cade? I thought he chased him hard while he was at SMU." I didn't say that Riley has soured on Cade. I said if I were in Riley's shoes,
yeah,
I would be asking to go get a transfer quarterback. But that's just me personally. I'm not in practice every week and seeing what Cade is doing in practice and okay, maybe there are things that he's doing that I can definitely fix or I don't know. I'm just saying from my perspective, if I was Garrett Riley, I'm not saying Garrett Riley himself is soured on Cade and wants to get a transfer. So sorry, I want to make that clear. That's just me personally. I would go get somebody and give him some competition. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying that's what Garrett Riley is going to do. Lisa Hart says DJ could come back to Clemson. No, I don't think that's not what people were asking. They were just talking about DJ potentially. He's been linked to Florida State, and so that would be interesting.
No, absolutely not. He's not coming back to Clemson.
No, he's not. Yeah, he's not coming back to Clemson. No. But it would be make for some interesting storylines if he went to Florida State.
It would, yeah. It'd be. I wouldn't mind seeing that actually. That might be kind of fun to have that storyline heading into next season.
Let's see. Let me see. K Club to Enthusiast says, "Imagine we get Cam Ward." Yeah, that's a pipe dream.
Yeah,
but that'd be something. That would be a guy I would if he wanted to come to Clemson, I'd be like, yes, come on down.
Let's do it.
He's a really talented football player. But yeah, that ain't happening. That ain't happening. All right. Anything else before you want to?
I don't think so. I think we've been on here going on 2 hours now, so I think it's time for us to go ahead and wrap up today's show. We still have 63 people in here right now. Thank you guys so much. That's a big deal for us, at least in my opinion, is having all you guys hang out with us for the entire 2 hours. Really enjoyed chopping it up with you guys in the comments section. We will be right back here next week. So don't worry. Right back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 7 p.m. next Thursday. Thank you guys for showing up and showing out, getting in the comment section. Hit that like button on your way out if you didn't already. Also subscribe to the channel. Till next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.